Over the weekend, the Seattle Seahawks made a move that I think was highly necessary. They brought back Chris Carson. And they brought back Chris Carson at a really reasonable rate. He's only going to be a $2.5 million cap hit this coming season, which gives Seattle some flexibility to still go after guys, which is also well less than the franchise tag of $8 million that he would have been. And it gives them a proven difference maker at a position that they deem important. Whether you like it or you don't, under Pete Carroll, the Seahawks are going to run the football. I'm not saying that they're going to run the football every single down, but it's really important for a team like Seattle to have a guy like that. Otherwise, teams I don't think would respect their running game. But it's interesting to see the way that some people respond to this. And I'm not pointing at a lot of people. In fact, I wouldn't even imagine it's a lot of you guys listening. I think it's more of the online community that thinks that the NFL is past a time of running backs. I think you need to have a good bell cow style of running back, or at least a guy who has that kind of ability to be successful in this league. You can make it work without one, but you better have a really good quarterback, and even then, when you don't, all of a sudden, you might find yourself like the Kansas City Chiefs with no offensive line, with Patrick Mahomes running for his life all game. A lot of people, though, seem to think that because the Seahawks fired Brian Schottenheimer, and because of the way the offense failed down the stretch, that Pete Carroll is about to go back to a different kind of game than we saw this past season, back to the old, let's run the football a ton Seahawks offense. And I feel like people need a refresher on what Pete Carroll actually said at the end of the season. So for those who are concerned that the Seahawks brought back Chris Carson as if that's some detriment, here is Pete Carroll talking about how the Seahawks, he wants them to run the football this coming season.
I want to see if we can run the ball more effectively to focus the play of the opponents and see if we can force them to do things like we like them to do more, like we have been able to do that in the past. That doesn't mean we're going to run the ball 50 times a game. It means we need to run the ball with direction and focus and style that allows us to dictate the game. So I mean, I'm just frankly, I'd like to not play against 2 deep looks all season long next year.
Makes a lot of sense. He wants teams to respect his running game. And guess what? They didn't respect the running game last year because it wasn't good. Also, they didn't run the football that much, so anyone buying into that narrative, I'm going to keep drumming it into your head. That's just wrong. Whether it's the neutral down passing situations or it's just actually taking a look at the amount of times that Russell Wilson threw the ball or was sacked or threw the ball away or threw an incompletion. If you add up, or scrambled, all the times that Russell Wilson threw the ball or was, I would imagine, in a play that was calling for him to throw the football versus the amount of times they handed it off to a running back. It was 41-21. That's like 2-1. Not quite, but close. I feel that people need to also understand that just because the Seahawks decided against the Cowboys in 2018 and against the Packers in 2019, and it didn't work out, doesn't mean it wasn't the right strategy. Yes, Russell Wilson's your starting quarterback. Teams also game plan to beat the weaknesses of other teams. That's what you can do when you have a great quarterback. You can have a multiple offense. The Cowboys gave up a bunch of yards rushing the next week to the Los Angeles Rams in 2018. The Green Bay Packers gave up a ton of yards rushing to the San Francisco 49ers the very next week. Now, maybe the Seahawks should have realized, okay, well, we don't have Chris Carson for this game. We need to evaluate our running back situation a little bit better, a little bit differently. But if they had been able to run the football in those games effectively, the way that their game plan likely called for it, they should have won. That they were not able to get it done, I don't think that's necessarily a failure of game plan, although maybe with Brian Schottenheimer, there were some limitations as to what you could actually get out of the running game. And that's what you're hoping for differently this coming season. And I think that Chris Carson back in the fold gives the Seahawks the best ability possible to not only just be better at running the football than they were this past season, but also open things up downfield and get away from that dreaded cover two that every single defense felt so easily that they could throw up against Seattle.